The galaxy was vast, cold, and indifferent. Humanity had clawed its way out of Earth's gravity well centuries ago, earning a reputation as Deathworlders, a nickname born from their planet's brutal environment and their stubborn refusal to die. Humans weren't the strongest species in the cosmos, nor the smartest, but they were survivors. They thrived where others faltered, adapting to harsh climates, scarce resources, and endless challenges. Now, scattered across the stars in fragile colonies, humanity was still learning how to navigate the treacherous waters of interstellar politics. It was on a quiet day aboard the starship Iron Resolve that everything changed. The ship, a sleek vessel designed for exploration and combat, drifted near the edge of known space. Its crew was conducting routine scans when an unusual signal pierced through the void. It wasn't just any transmission. It was a distress call, weak and fragmented, but unmistakably alien. "Help us. They come." The message repeated in broken universal trade language, interspersed with eerie clicks and whistles unique to the sender's native tongue. Captain Leora Kane stood on the bridge, her sharp green eyes fixed on a holographic display showing the signal's origin. She was a woman who carried authority like armor, her voice calm yet commanding. Her dark hair was tied back in a no-nonsense braid, and her uniform bore the scuffs of countless battles. Around her, the crew buzzed with curiosity and unease. "What do we know?" she asked, turning to Lieutenant Arun Patel, the ship's communications officer. "It's coming from a system about 3 light years away," Arun replied, adjusting his glasses. "No known colonies or trade routes nearby. Whoever sent it is either desperate or reckless, and possibly both," muttered Commander Elena Vasquez, the ship's second-in-command. She leaned against the railing, arms crossed. "We don't have the resources to play hero, Captain. Our own colonies are barely holding together." Leora didn't respond immediately. She stared at the blinking dot on the map, weighing the risks. Humanity's expansion into space hadn't been easy. Resources were stretched thin, alliances were fragile, and every decision felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss. Yet something about the plea tugged at her instincts. "We can't ignore this," she said finally, her tone firm. "If there's even a chance someone needs our help, we owe it to them, and to ourselves, to investigate." Belina sighed but nodded reluctantly. "Orders. Set course for the signal's origin. Full stealth mode until we know what we're dealing with, and prep the ground team, just in case." As the Iron Resolve shifted into motion, the crew scrambled to prepare. Some whispered nervously about potential dangers. Others speculated about what kind of aliens would send such a cryptic message. Among them was Ensign Ria Cho, the youngest member of the science division. She gazed at the stars outside the viewport, her heart racing with equal parts fear and excitement. This could be humanity's first real contact with another intelligent species, or it could be a trap. Either way, history was being written right now. Hours later, the ship arrived at the source of the signal, a dying planet orbiting a dim red dwarf star. Its atmosphere was thick with toxic gases, and its surface was scarred by massive craters and rivers of molten lava. Despite its hostile appearance, faint signs of civilization flickered below. Structures half buried in ash, energy readings inconsistent but present. "This place looks like hell," muttered Sergeant Theo Grant, the burly head of security, as he checked his weapon. "Maybe," Leora said, her expression unreadable. "But if hell has people crying for help, then we go in anyway." With those words, the ground team disembarked, stepping into the unknown. What awaited them would test not only their courage, but also their understanding of life itself. The air was thick with tension as the ground team stepped off the shuttle onto the alien planet's surface. The sky above them glowed a sickly orange, and the ground beneath their boots felt like brittle glass, cracking slightly with every step. Captain Leora Kane led the way, her helmet's visor scanning for threats while her hand rested on the hilt of her plasma pistol. Behind her, Sergeant Theo Grant carried a heavy pulse rifle, his eyes darting between jagged rocks and smoldering craters. Ensign Ria Cho adjusted her scanner nervously, trying to make sense of the faint energy readings that had brought them here. "This place gives me the creeps," Theo muttered over the comms, his deep voice echoing in everyone's helmets. "Feels like we're being watched." "Stay sharp," Leora replied curtly. "We don't know what, or who, we're dealing with yet." As they moved closer to one of the crumbling structures, strange noises began to fill the air. Low hums, metallic scraping, and an occasional high-pitched chirp that sent shivers down Ria's spine. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and from behind a ridge emerged a group of creatures unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They were tall, insectoid beings with shimmering crystalline exoskeletons that refracted light into dazzling colors. Their elongated limbs ended in clawed hands, and their multifaceted eyes glinted ominously. Despite their intimidating appearance, they raised their arms slowly, palms open, a universal gesture of peace. "They're not attacking," Ria whispered, her voice trembling. "Not yet," Theo growled, keeping his weapon trained on the nearest alien. Leora stepped forward cautiously, raising her own hand in a similar gesture. "We mean no harm," she said aloud, hoping the translator device embedded in her suit would bridge the language gap. To her relief, the aliens responded with clicks and whistles that translated roughly into, "You came." For several tense minutes, communication was slow and halting. The aliens identified themselves as the Tilaxi, a species native to this dying world. Through fragmented sentences, they explained that their planet was under siege by invaders, relentless machines that consumed everything in their path. They had sent out the distress signal in desperation, unsure if anyone would answer. Just as trust began to form, disaster struck. A deafening roar split the air, followed by a barrage of explosive projectiles raining down from above. Shadowy drones descended rapidly, their sleek forms bristling with weapons. Without hesitation, the Tilaxi leaped into action, using tools strapped to their bodies to fire beams of concentrated energy at the attackers. "Take cover," Leora shouted, diving behind a chunk of rubble as blasts erupted around them. The humans joined the fight instinctively, their advanced weaponry cutting through the swarm of drones. Theo unleashed a steady stream of pulses, shredding metal frames, while Ria deployed a portable shield generator to protect the group. Even Leora found herself firing alongside the Tilaxi, their combined efforts turning the tide of the ambush. When the last drone exploded in a shower of sparks, silence fell over the battlefield. Both humans and Tilaxi stood panting, their bodies battered but alive. For the first time, the aliens approached without hesitation, one of them extending a clawed hand toward Leora. "You fight with us," it said, its voice clearer now thanks to improved translation algorithms. Leora hesitated only briefly before clasping the alien's hand firmly. "Together," she agreed. Though the battle had ended, the war was far from over. As they regrouped inside the Tilaxi stronghold, a labyrinth of tunnels carved into the planet's crust, they realized the true scope of the threat. The invaders weren't just machines. They were intelligent, adaptive, and relentless. And they wouldn't stop until every living thing on this planet, and perhaps beyond, was destroyed. For the first time in history, humanity had forged an alliance with an alien race. But survival would require more than cooperation. It would demand sacrifice, ingenuity, and courage. Inside the Tilaxi stronghold, the air was damp and heavy with the scent of sulfur. The tunnels glowed faintly from bioluminescent fungi clinging to the walls, casting eerie shadows that danced with every step. Captain Leora Kane and her team followed their insectoid hosts deeper into the labyrinth, their boots crunching against uneven stone floors. Despite the tense camaraderie forged during the ambush, unease lingered in the air. Humanity had never encountered a species like the Tilaxi before, and trust, on both sides, was fragile. The leader of the Tilaxi, identified as Zixkara through the translator, guided them to a large chamber filled with strange machinery. Crystalline panels hummed softly, projecting holographic maps of the planet and surrounding star systems onto the ceiling. Ria Cho's eyes widened as she studied the displays, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. "What is this?" she asked, pointing to a swirling red icon dominating one section of the map. Zixkara clicked sharply, its multifaceted eyes narrowing. "Vorikin," it said, the word dripping with venom. Through fragmented explanations and visual aids, the humans pieced together the horrifying truth. The Vorikin were not just machines. They were a parasitic hive mind species capable of assimilating other life forms into their collective consciousness. Entire civilizations had fallen to them, their populations stripped of individuality and turned into mindless drones serving the hive. "They consume worlds," Zixkra continued, gesturing toward images of devastated planets. "Resources, life, everything." Leora frowned, studying the data. "Why haven't we heard about them before? If they're this dangerous, someone should have warned us." "The Vorikin spread slowly, quietly," Zixkra explained. "They isolate targets, strike when least expected. By the time others notice, it is too late." The revelation sent a chill through the room. Humanity's colonies were still young and vulnerable, scattered across uncharted regions of space. If the Vorikin discovered Earth or its outposts, the consequences could be catastrophic. Sergeant Theo Grant clenched his fists, his voice low but fierce. "So what do you want from us?" "Revenge. Help evacuating your people." "Both," Zixkra replied simply. "We cannot flee. This world is our home. But if we fall, so will others. You must stop them." Leora exchanged a glance with Elena Vasquez, who stood silently by the doorway, arms crossed. The weight of the decision pressed down on all of them. Helping the Tlaxi meant risking their lives, and potentially exposing humanity's colonies to retaliation. Yet doing nothing would leave an entire species to die and allow the Vorikin to grow stronger unchecked. "We'll need more than good intentions," Elena said finally, breaking the silence. "What can you offer us? Weapons? Intel?" Zixkra hesitated, then motioned for the humans to follow. They led the group to another chamber where rows of crystalline devices pulsed with energy. These, Zixkra explained, were remnants of their ancient technology. Weapons designed to disrupt the Vorikin's neural network. However, most were damaged or incomplete after years of war. "This could work," Ria murmured, examining one of the devices. "If we combine it with our own tech, maybe we can create something powerful enough to fight back." Leora nodded thoughtfully. "All right, we'll help, but on one condition. We work together. No secrets, no holding back. Deal?" Zixkra extended a clawed hand once again. "Deal." As the alliance solidified, the humans couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far bigger than themselves. The Vorikin weren't just a threat to the Tlaxi, they were a danger to the entire galaxy. And now, humanity had been thrust into a role it wasn't sure it was ready for. Saviors of the stars. But as Leora looked at her team and the determined faces of their newfound allies, she felt a spark of hope. Together, they might stand a chance. Little did they know, the true horrors of the Vorikin were only beginning to reveal themselves. Back aboard the Iron Resolve, the mood was tense but focused. The crew gathered in the ship's central lab, a cramped yet high-tech space filled with holographic displays and humming machinery. Captain Leora Kane stood at the head of the room, her arms crossed as she surveyed the team. Ensign Ria Cho worked feverishly at a console, analyzing data from the Tlaxi crystals, while Lieutenant Arun Patel tinkered with one of the damaged devices they'd brought back. Sergeant Theo Grant leaned against the wall, his massive frame exuding both strength and skepticism. "We've got a problem," Ria said suddenly, breaking the silence. Her voice carried an edge of urgency. "These Tlaxi weapons, they're powerful, sure, but they're too unstable. If we try to use them as is, they could blow up in our faces." "Great," Theo muttered under his breath. "So we risked our necks for glorified paperweights." "No," Leora interjected firmly. We adapt. That's what humans do best. Isn't that right, Arun? The lieutenant looked up from his work, pushing his glasses higher on his nose. She's right. These crystals operate on principles similar to Earth's bioengineered tech, self-repairing systems, adaptive energy matrices. With some modifications, we might be able to stabilize them. Ria nodded eagerly. Exactly. And if we integrate them with our nanotech swarms. Hold up, Alina Vasquez interrupted, stepping forward. Her sharp gaze swept across the group. You're talking about combining alien tech with ours. That's risky business. What if it backfires? It's not just risky, it's necessary, Leora replied without hesitation. The Vorican are unlike anything we've faced before. We need every advantage we can get. Besides, humanity didn't survive Earth by playing it safe. Her words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Humanity's history was defined by innovation born out of desperation. From terraforming barren planets to engineering organisms capable of surviving extreme conditions, their resilience had always been their greatest weapon. Now, that same ingenuity would be put to the ultimate test. Over the next several hours, the lab buzzed with activity. Ria and Arun worked side by side, fusing Tlaxi crystals with human nanobots, microscopic machines designed to repair and enhance technology. Meanwhile, other members of the crew tested prototypes, running simulations to ensure stability. Theo grumbled occasionally but pitched in where needed, his brute strength proving useful for handling bulky equipment. As the sun rose over the distant red dwarf star outside, progress began to take shape. The hybrid weapon, a sleek rifle-sized device, was ready for its first field test. Leora volunteered herself, strapping the prototype onto her back and stepping into the shuttle bay. Be careful, Captain, Alina warned, her tone unusually soft. If this thing malfunctions, I'll be fine, Leora assured her with a confident smile. Besides, someone has to make sure it works. The shuttle descended to the planet's surface, landing near a cluster of inactive Vorican drones left behind after the earlier ambush. Leora approached cautiously, aiming the weapon at one of the machines. With a deep breath, she pulled the trigger. A burst of shimmering energy erupted from the barrel, striking the drone with pinpoint precision. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, cracks spread across the machine's metallic shell, glowing faintly before it collapsed into a heap of inert scrap. It works, Leora whispered, lowering the weapon. A grin spread across her face as she turned to the camera feed transmitting back to the ship. It actually works. Cheers erupted in the lab as the crew watched the footage. For the first time since arriving on this doomed planet, hope flickered in their hearts. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were innovators, warriors, and perhaps even saviors. But as celebrations died down, Leora reminded them of the road ahead. This is just the beginning, she said. The Vorican won't stop coming. And neither will we. With renewed determination, the crew prepared for the battles to come. Little did they know, the true cost of victory would soon demand more than they ever imagined. The plan was risky, bordering on suicidal. But Captain Leora Kane had never been one to shy away from danger. The hybrid weapon, dubbed the Vorican Disruptor, had proven effective against individual drones, but the real threat lay deeper. The Vorican High Ship, a colossal biomechanical monstrosity floating in orbit above the Tlaxi planet. It wasn't just a ship, it was the nerve center of the hive mind, controlling every drone and assimilated being across the galaxy. If they could infiltrate it and disable the overmind, the central consciousness driving the Vorican, they might stand a chance of ending the invasion. All right, people, Leora said, addressing her team in the briefing room. Holographic schematics of the hive ship hovered above the table, its jagged surface resembling a living organism more than a machine. This isn't going to be easy. The hive is crawling with defenses, drones, traps, and who knows what else. We'll need to move fast, stay quiet, and hit them where it hurts. Sergeant Theo Grant cracked his knuckles, his usual gruff demeanor masking a flicker of unease. "Sounds like fun. What's the plan if things go south?" "We improvise," Leora replied bluntly. "But failure isn't an option. If we don't stop the overmind, the Vorikin will keep spreading until there's nothing left. Not the Tulaxi, not us, not anyone." The infiltration team consisted of 5 members: Leora, Theo, Ensign Ria Cho, Lieutenant Arun Patel, and Dr. Elias Voss, the ship's brilliant but reclusive scientist. Each had a critical role to play. Ria carried scanning equipment to map the hive's layout, while Arun handled communications and hacking. Theo provided muscle, armed with both brute strength and heavy weaponry. And Elias, he insisted on joining despite his lack of combat experience, claiming his knowledge of the disruptor's mechanics might prove vital. Under cover of darkness, the team boarded a stealth shuttle modified by the Tulaxi. Its crystalline cloaking device rendered it nearly invisible as it approached the high ship. As they docked inside a cavernous hangar bay, the air grew colder, heavier, almost alive. The walls pulsed faintly, organic tissue fused with metal, and strange tendrils writhed like veins beneath the surface. "This place gives me the creeps," Ria whispered, clutching her scanner tightly. "Stay focused," Leora reminded her, her voice steady despite the eerie surroundings. Moving cautiously through narrow corridors, the team encountered their first obstacle: a swarm of dormant drones suspended in gelatinous pods along the walls. One wrong move could awaken them all. Arun worked quickly, disabling security systems with his handheld console, while Theo kept watch, ready to blast anything that moved. Their luck held. For now, they reached a chamber filled with tanks containing humanoid figures suspended in liquid. Some were clearly Tulaxi, their crystalline exoskeletons dulled and lifeless. Others appeared human, or at least close enough to send chills down Ria's spine. "They're assimilating prisoners," Elias murmured, his face pale, "turning them into part of the hive." Leora clenched her jaw. "We can't save everyone. Not yet. Our priority is the overmind." As they pressed onward, the hive seemed to grow more hostile. Strange clicking sounds echoed around them, growing louder. Then came the ambush. A group of drones dropped from the ceiling, their glowing eyes locking onto the intruders. "Took 'em long enough," Theo growled, raising his weapon. Bullets and energy blasts flew as the team fought back, carving a path forward. But amidst the chaos, Elias froze, staring at something behind them. "The core," he shouted, pointing to a pulsating mass of mineral tissue embedded in the wall. "That's it. That's the overmind." Before anyone could react, a massive tendril lashed out, wrapping around Elias and dragging him toward the core. "No," Leora yelled, firing at the appendage. But it was too late. Elias turned to face them, his expression calm but resolute. "Go, I'll overload the reactor. Get out of here." And with that, he activated the disruptor, sacrificing himself to buy the team time. As alarms blared and the hive began to collapse, Leora led her crew toward the exit, hearts heavy but resolve unbroken. The mission wasn't over, but the cost of victory was becoming painfully clear. The hive ship trembled violently as the team sprinted through its pulsating corridors, the sound of collapsing organic walls echoing behind them. Dr. Elias Voss's final act of bravery had bought them precious time, but the clock was ticking. The disruptor's overload sequence would destabilize the Overmind's core reactor, triggering a catastrophic explosion that would rip the hive ship apart, and anyone still inside it. "Move faster," Leora shouted over the comms, her voice cutting through the chaos. She led the way, her plasma pistol drawn and her eyes scanning for threats. Behind her, Theo covered their rear, firing bursts at pursuing drones that screeched and exploded in flashes of light. Ria clutched her scanner tightly, sweat dripping down her face as she tried to navigate the labyrinthine structure while dodging falling debris. Arun limped slightly, having taken a glancing hit from an energy blast earlier, but he refused to slow down. "We're almost there," Rhea called out, pointing ahead to a dimly lit passage marked on her map as the escape route. But the hive wasn't about to let them go without a fight. From the shadows emerged a new kind of enemy, larger, more grotesque versions of the standard drones, their bodies fused with assimilated prisoners. One bore the distorted features of a Tulaxi warrior, its crystalline exoskeleton cracked and oozing black fluid. Another resembled a human, its face twisted into a permanent scream. "These things are abominations," Theo growled, blasting one of the hybrids with his pulse rifle. The creature staggered but didn't fall, forcing him to reload mid-stride. Lyra fired her weapon with precision, taking down another hybrid before shouting orders. "Rhea, keep moving. Don't stop for anything." "I'm trotting," Rhea replied, tears streaming down her face as she pushed herself harder than ever before. Her mind kept flashing back to Elias's calm expression as he sacrificed himself. His words echoed in her head. "Go. Get out of here." Finally, they reached the docking bay where their shuttle waited. The sleek craft hummed softly, its cloaking device still active. But just as they approached, a massive tendril burst through the ceiling, blocking their path. At its center loomed what could only be described as a guardian, a towering amalgamation of flesh and metal, its many eyes glowing with malevolent intelligence. "This is gonna hurt," Theo muttered, raising his weapon. Before the creature could strike, Leora made a split-second decision. "A run. Get the shuttle ready. Theo, cover us. Rhea, come with me." She grabbed Rhea's arm and darted toward a nearby control panel, dodging blasts from the Guardian's limbs. With trembling hands, Rhea hacked into the system, rerouting power to disable the tendril. Sparks flew as circuits overloaded, and the tendril retracted just enough for the team to slip past. "Go, go, go," Lyora yelled, shoving Rhea toward the shuttle. Theo followed close behind, firing wildly to hold off the Guardian until the last possible second. As he leaped aboard, the shuttle lifted off, narrowly avoiding a swipe from the creature's claws. Outside the viewport, the hive ship began to collapse in earnest, massive chunks breaking away as internal explosions tore through its structure. Then, with a blinding flash, the core detonated, sending shockwaves rippling through space. Inside the shuttle, silence fell. No one spoke as they watched the remains of the hive disintegrate into nothingness. The weight of Elias's sacrifice hung heavy in the air. "He saved us," Rhea whispered finally, her voice breaking. "He knew exactly what he was doing." "He did," Leora said quietly, her jaw tight. "And we'll honor him by finishing this fight." As the shuttle docked with the Iron Resolve, the crew returned to find the rescued prisoners waiting anxiously. Among them were humans, colonists abducted during earlier encounters with the Vorikin. Their stories painted a grim picture of the hive mind's cruelty, forced assimilation, endless suffering, and the erasure of individuality. Hearing their tales only deepened the resolve of everyone aboard. The Vorikin weren't just invaders, they were monsters, and humanity wouldn't rest until every last one of them was destroyed. Elias's death had not been in vain. It had ignited a fire within the team, fueling their determination to see this mission through to the end. But as Captain Leora Kane gazed at the stars beyond the viewport, she couldn't shake the feeling that greater sacrifices lay ahead. The Iron Resolve limped back to a neutral space station near the edge of known territory, its hull scarred from battle, and its crew weary but resolute. Captain Leora Kane stood on the bridge, staring at the swirling nebula outside the viewport. The hive ship's destruction had been a victory, but it was only one small step in a much larger war. The Vorikin were still out there, spreading like a cancer across the galaxy. Humanity, and the Tulaxi, couldn't face them alone. "We need allies," Leora said firmly during a meeting with her senior officers. "If we're going to stop the Vorikin, we'll have to unite every species willing to fight." Alina Vasquez frowned, leaning forward in her seat. "You're talking about forming an interstellar coalition. That's not easy, especially when most species see us as newcomers who don't belong here. Maybe so, Leora replied, her tone unwavering. But the Vorikin aren't just our problem. They're everyone's problem. If we show them what's at stake, they'll listen. With that decision made, the Iron Resolve embarked on a diplomatic mission, unlike any humanity had attempted before. Their first stop was the homeworld of the Vrin, a reptilian species known for their stealth technology and distrust of outsiders. Landing on their swampy planet felt like stepping into another world entirely. Thick mist clung to the air, and glowing fungi illuminated jagged trees. Lyra led the delegation, flanked by Theo and Rhea. They were greeted by Vrin elders, their scaled bodies shimmering faintly under the dim light. Using holographic recordings of the hive ship's horrors, Leora laid out the case for unity. "The Vorikin will come for you next," she warned. "When they do, you'll wish you'd joined us now." At first, the Vrin hesitated, but when Rhea played footage of assimilated prisoners, including members of their own kind, the elders exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, one stepped forward. "We will help," he hissed, "but only because your cause aligns with ours." From there, the journey continued. The team visited the aquatic Caliph, whose underwater cities sparkled like jewels beneath endless oceans. They met the nomadic Jarek, energy beings who drifted through space in crystalline vessels. Each encounter brought new challenges, but also new promises of support. Some species required more convincing than others. The proud Cytherians, warriors with plasma-infused armor, initially dismissed humanity as weak. It wasn't until Theo demonstrated the power of the Vorikin disruptor, obliterating a simulated drone in seconds, that they agreed to join. As alliances grew, so did the coalition of free worlds. Representatives gathered aboard the Iron Resolve, sharing knowledge, resources, and strategies. The Vrin contributed cloaking devices capable of hiding entire fleets. The Caliph offered advanced shielding technology, while the Jarek provided ancient wisdom about navigating dangerous sectors of space. Even the Tulaxi, though battered, pledged their remaining forces to the fight. But not everyone was eager to cooperate. A faction of isolationist colonies argued that humanity should focus on protecting its own interests rather than risking everything for aliens. Backlash came even from within the crew. Some questioned whether leading such a massive effort was overstepping humanity's place in the galaxy. "It's too late to turn back now," Leora told Elena during a private conversation. "We've started something bigger than ourselves. If we falter, the whole galaxy pays the price." Elena sighed, rubbing her temples. "I hope you're right, Captain. Because if this fails—" "It won't," Leora interrupted, her voice steady. "We've already proven we can win. Now we just have to scale it up." By the time preparations were complete, the Coalition had assembled a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships of all shapes and sizes filled the void, united under a single banner: survival. As the Armada set course for the Vorikin homeworld, hidden deep within the Black Star's nebula, Leora addressed the crew one last time. "This isn't just about revenge or survival," she said, her words broadcast across every ship. "It's about proving that no matter where we come from, we can stand together against darkness. Let's make history." The galaxy held its breath. The final battle was coming, and humanity would be at its forefront. The Black Star's nebula loomed ahead, a swirling expanse of shadow and light that seemed alive with energy. Its dense clouds of radiation and debris made navigation treacherous, but it was also the perfect hiding place for the Vorikin homeworld, a fortress buried deep within its chaotic heart. As the Coalition fleet approached, Captain Leora Kane felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her shoulders. This wasn't just humanity's fight anymore. It was the galaxy's last stand. "All ships, prepare for engagement," she ordered over the comms, her voice steady despite the storm brewing in her chest. "Stick to the plan. We don't have room for mistakes." The Coalition had spent weeks strategizing, combining the strengths of each species into a cohesive battle plan. The Vrin cloaking devices masked the fleet's approach, while Caliph shields protected vulnerable ships from the nebula's harsh environment. Xeric scouts guided them through the most dangerous regions, their crystalline vessels glowing faintly as they mapped safe routes. Even the Tlaxi contributed, using their crystalline weapons to disable enemy defenses before they could retaliate. As the fleet entered the nebula, chaos erupted almost immediately. Vorican drones swarmed out of hidden alcoves, their sleek forms cutting through the void like knives. Plasma blasts lit up the darkness, turning the battlefield into a kaleidoscope of destruction. The Iron Resolve led the charge, its hybrid disruptors firing bursts of shimmering energy that tore through drone formations. "Enemy capital ships incoming," shouted Lieutenant Arun Patel from his station on the bridge. On the main viewport, massive biomechanical warships emerged from the shadows, their surfaces writhing with organic tendrils. "Focus fire on their command vessels," Lyora commanded. "If we can take out their leaders, the rest will falter." The coalition responded with precision. Cytherian warriors charged head-on, their plasma armor deflecting enemy fire as they rammed into larger ships. Aquatic Caliph fighters darted between debris fields, launching torpedoes that crippled Vorican engines. Nomadic Xeric ships unleashed waves of destabilizing energy, disrupting the hive mind's neural network and causing drones to malfunction mid-flight. But the Vorican adapted quickly, countering every move with terrifying efficiency. Their ships released swarms of smaller drones equipped with corrosive payloads, targeting coalition vessels' weak points. One by one, ships fell victim to the relentless assault. "We're losing too many," Elena Vasquez barked, her eyes locked on the casualty reports streaming across her console. Lyora clenched her fists, her mind racing. "We need to draw them out." Theo prepped the decoy signal. Sergeant Theo Grant nodded grimly, activating a device designed to mimic the Overmind's neural frequency. Within moments, dozens of Vorican ships redirected their attention, lured toward the false signal. "Now," Lyora yelled. The coalition seized the opportunity, launching a concentrated strike against the exposed Vorican flagship. Explosions rocked the massive vessel as coalition forces poured everything they had into the attack. For a brief moment, victory seemed within reach. Then, without warning, the flagship split open, revealing a horrifying sight. The Overmind itself, a pulsating mass of neural tissue larger than any ship. Tendrils lashed out, ensnaring nearby vessels and pulling them into its maw. "This is it," Lyora whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. "All ships, fall back. Rhea, lock onto the Overmind's core frequency. It's time to end this." Rhea Cho worked furiously at her console, tears streaming down her face as she activated the final protocol Elias Voss had programmed into the disruptor before his death. The weapon hummed with power, channeling energy from every allied ship into a single devastating beam. "Fire," Lyora said softly, her finger hovering over the trigger. With a deafening roar, the beam struck the Overmind, piercing its outer layers and plunging deep into its core. The creature convulsed violently, releasing an ear-splitting screech that echoed across the nebula. And then silence. The Overmind collapsed in on itself, its tendrils retracting lifelessly as the hive mind shattered. Across the battlefield, drones froze mid-motion, their lights flickering out like dying stars. The coalition erupted in cheers, but Lyora remained silent, staring at the wreckage. They had won, but at what cost? The galaxy was safe for now, but scars ran deep, both among the survivors and within humanity's soul. The Overmind's destruction sent shockwaves through the Vorican forces, both literal and figurative. Across the battlefield, drones froze mid-action, their glowing eyes dimming as the neural connection binding them to the hive collapsed. Coalition ships, battered but victorious, floated amidst the wreckage of what had once been an unstoppable enemy. The Black Star's nebula, now eerily quiet, seemed to mourn the loss of its dark occupant. But Captain Lyora Kane wasn't celebrating yet. Her sharp gaze scanned the viewport, searching for any sign of movement among the debris. "Don't let your guard down," she warned her crew over the comms. "We don't know if this is truly over." Her instincts proved right moments later when a faint signal flickered on the sensors, a single Vorkin drone drifting toward the Coalition fleet. Its systems were damaged, its body scorched from the battle, but it still emitted a low-frequency pulse that made Rhea Cho's scanner beep urgently. "It's transmitting something," Rhea said, her voice tense as she analyzed the data. "It's not random noise. It's a distress call." "To who?" Elena Vasquez asked sharply, stepping closer to the console. Rhea hesitated, then shook her head. "I don't think it's calling reinforcements. It's broadcasting coordinates, somewhere deep in uncharted space." Leora frowned, leaning over Rhea's shoulder to study the readings. "Could it be another overmind? A backup system?" "It's possible," Rhea replied. "If the Vorkin had multiple hives, destroying this one might not have ended the threat completely." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. After everything they'd sacrificed, the lives lost, the alliances forged, they couldn't afford to leave even a sliver of doubt. If another hive existed, it would only be a matter of time before the Vorkin rebuilt their forces and returned stronger than ever. "We can't ignore this," Leora said finally, straightening up. "Prepare a strike team. We'll follow the signal and finish what we started." Elena opened her mouth to protest but stopped herself, seeing the determination in Leora's eyes. Instead, she nodded grimly. "Understood. I'll gather volunteers." The mission was risky, perhaps more so than infiltrating the first hive ship. Only a small group could go without drawing attention, and they'd have no backup if things went wrong. In the end, Leora chose Theo, Rhea, and 2 elite Tlaxi warriors to accompany her. Together, they boarded a stealth shuttle modified with cloaking technology provided by the Vryn. The journey took them far beyond the nebula, into regions of space few species dared to explore. Strange phenomena surrounded them: gravitational anomalies, bursts of radiation, and swirling clouds of cosmic dust. Yet the signal grew stronger with each passing hour, guiding them inexorably toward their destination. When they arrived, the sight chilled them to the bone. Suspended in the void was a massive structure unlike anything they'd seen before, a pulsating sphere of organic tissue encased in crystalline armor. At its core glowed a faint blue light, almost hypnotic in its intensity. "That's it," Rhea whispered, her voice trembling. "The source of the signal." Leora turned to her team, her expression grim but resolute. "This ends here. No matter what happens, we sever the link permanently." As they approached the structure, tendrils shot out, attempting to ensnare the shuttle. Theo fired disruptor blasts, carving a path forward while the Tlaxi warriors covered their flanks. Inside, the team faced horrors worse than those in the first hive. Assimilated beings trapped in endless agony, their screams echoing through the corridors. Finally, they reached the heart of the structure, a pulsating mass identical to the overmind they'd destroyed. But this one was smaller, weaker, clinging to life by threads. "Activate the disruptor," Leora ordered. Rhea complied, tears streaming down her face as the weapon hummed to life. With a final burst of energy, the Overmen disintegrated, taking the last remnants of the Vorkin with it. As the team fled the collapsing structure, Leora allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. They had done the impossible, but at what cost? And how long until the galaxy faced another threat like this? For now, though, there was peace and hope. The iron resolve drifted silently through the void, its battered hull a testament to battles fought and sacrifices made. Captain Leora Kane stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars that stretched endlessly before her. The galaxy was quiet now. Too quiet, but it was a silence born of victory rather than despair. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was hope. The destruction of the second Overmind had been the final blow to the Vorkin hive mind. Without their central consciousness to guide them, The remaining drones had collapsed into lifeless husks, scattered across the cosmos like forgotten relics. The coalition of free worlds had declared the war over, but the scars ran deep. Entire species mourned their losses, and humanity's fragile colonies were left reeling from the cost of survival. Yet amidst the grief, there was gratitude and unity. The Tlaxi approached Leora personally as the coalition fleet prepared to disband. Zixkra, their leader, extended a crystalline claw in a gesture of respect. "You have saved us," Zixkra said, its voice steady but tinged with emotion. "Not just our world, but all worlds. We will not forget this." Leora clasped the alien's hand firmly, her expression softening for the first time in days. "We didn't do it alone. You fought alongside us. Together, we proved that even the smallest spark can ignite change." In return, the Tlaxi offered humanity something invaluable: knowledge. Their ancient archives contained secrets about terraforming, energy manipulation, and interstellar navigation, technologies that could help Earth's struggling colonies thrive. It was a gift born of mutual respect, a symbol of the bond forged in fire and blood. As the coalition disbanded, representatives from other species pledged aid as well. The Vryn shared stealth technology, while the Caliph provided advanced shielding systems. Even the nomadic Xeric promised to act as guardians of uncharted space, ensuring safe passage for those who ventured beyond known borders. Back aboard the Iron Resolve, the crew gathered one last time before heading home. Faces were weary but proud, their camaraderie stronger than ever. Ria Cho sat quietly in a corner, clutching the small crystal given to her by the Tlaxi, a token of remembrance for Dr. Elias Voss. His sacrifice had ignited the spark that led to victory, and his name would forever be etched in history. "We did good," Theo muttered gruffly, breaking the silence. He raised a glass of synthetic ale in a toast. "To those we lost, and to those still standing." "To hope," Alina added softly, raising her own glass. "To action," Leora finished, her voice firm but warm. As the ship entered Earth's solar system, the crew marveled at how much had changed. Humanity was no longer seen as a fledgling species clinging to survival. They were warriors, innovators, and saviors. News of their role in defeating the Vorican spread quickly, inspiring pride and determination among Earth's people. But Leora knew better than anyone that peace was fleeting. Somewhere in the vastness of space, another threat might already be stirring. And when it came, humanity would answer, not out of fear, but out of courage. Standing on the bridge, she gazed at the blue-green orb of Earth glowing faintly against the blackness of space. Her thoughts turned to the future, a future shaped by resilience, ingenuity, and unity. "Set course for home," she ordered, her voice carrying both exhaustion and resolve. As the Iron Resolve descended toward Earth, cheers erupted from ground control. The galaxy had been saved, but the journey was far from over. Humanity had proven itself capable of greatness, and if called upon again, they would rise to meet the challenge. For now, though, there was rest and hope.